1776, you have to be careful who you talk to. Anyways, hello, good to see you today. But you? You're a different story. Okay, great. Congress. You're not Congress either. I can't stay and chat because my troops are not safe. The British are not happy about the sneak attack we just carried out. What? What is that you say? You've not heard about this sneak attack? Okay, then I'll make an exception for you and tell you quickly. I'm General George Washington. Save the applause for later. By that, I mean when we gain our victory over those redcoats. I started fighting at the French and Indian War in 1753 with the British. Several years and tons of unjust taxes later, the Congress voted me to be the commander of the army, this time against the British. Go figure. I was going to lead those so-called Yankee Doodles against King George. We lost almost all the early battles, and I was not happy. Gradually, I became a better military leader and strategist. Imagine this. It is the winter of 1776, and I wanted revenge because my men and I had just lost the battles of New Jersey and Long Island. I had a plan. We crossed the icy cold Delaware River by boat to get to Trenton, New Jersey. I was terribly worried. One, because my men had to work very hard to break the ice just so we could cross. I was scared they would waste all their energy. Also, anywhere and everywhere, there are British. See, there's one right there. What if they heard or saw us? What if it took way too long? I was also scared about the British Army. I had fought against them before and knew they had an army much more tremendous than ours. To make it worse, the British had appropriate winter clothing and we did not. Were they expecting me to buy them clothes when I don't even get paid? Another reason I was not so confident at first was because every day my soldiers were leaving. Sometimes when their time was up, but sometimes a month or a week or even just one day after signing up to fight for their freedom. But I wouldn't do the sneak attack with no good reason behind it. One of my really good reasons was that it was snowing. I was overjoyed because I was depending on that snow to cover us as we traveled. I also planned the wonderful sneak attack around Christmas time, so the British were partying. I had confidence for the sneak attack because I had been training my men really hard with all I knew. What I think helped us most was that I taught the skills I had learned all those years ago at the French and Indian War. I taught them how to fight like the Native Americans did, and we won the sneak attack. You should have seen the surprised look on their faces when we showed up. Okay, I'm not trying to show off, but without the marvelous sneak attack I planned, we wouldn't be as close to our freedom as we are now. Oh, you need, what? What is that you say? You need General George Washington? Oh, that's me. I'll be there in a second. Farewell, we're off to battle. Wish us luck, and may God bless America.
Sorry, I'm so tired. I just walked from New York all the way to Philadelphia. Boy, do I have a story to tell. My name is James Fortin. You probably know me for risking my life and freedom for my country. Sadly, my grandparents had been slaves, but my parents and I were free African Americans. Growing up, I worked as a sailmaker with my father, and later in a store. When the Revolutionary War started, I wasn't just going to sit around. It was time I do my part. I worked on a colonial ship called the Royal Louis. My job was to carry gunpowder up to the deck. We were fighting against the Anthem, a British ship. We had to surrender to the Anthem, which was arriving in New York, so I would board the prison ship. The men with me on the Royal Louis were white, and we get traded. But I might get sold as a slave. Later, a boy named Henry came over to me. He saw that I had marbles and asked if I had more so we could play a game. Over time, me and Henry became quite close. One day, Henry's father, Mr. Baisley, asked if he could go talk to me, so I went to go see him. On October 21st, 1781, Mr. Baisley offered me a huge offer to go to England with Henry. I would become a wealthy and educated man. I wanted to take his offer, but I would not betray my country, so I said no. Luckily, Mr. Baisley still offered to put a good word on me on the prison ship. When we arrived in New York, I was forced to go on the prison ship. When I set foot on the ship, it smelled of death. Even if I was sold as a slave, I may die first. But I remembered my grandfather was here before me. Maybe I could survive like him. Many days passed, but one day I was called on deck. I was worried. Am I going to be sold as a slave? I went and it said I was free tonight. I could go wherever I wished. I'm so happy. I'm not going to be sold as a slave. I get to return home and be with my family. I think Mr. Baisley's word got out to someone. The night came. It was time I go see my family again. I was hungry and barefoot and walked from New York all the way to Philadelphia. I returned home, safe, and back with my family. Overall, when I returned home, I was a sailman again. I became the wealthiest man in Philadelphia. I also worked really hard to end slavery. Even though I became wealthy, I think the best part of my journey was the choices I made, not betraying my country. I'm so proud for surviving that prison ship. Farewell, I'm off to Philadelphia.
Hello, I'm Robert Shirtliff, and I'm a brave Continental soldier. Hey, did I trick you? You probably thought I was a male. Do you want to hear my story? My name is Deborah Sampson. I lived in Pennsylvania. My mother was sick and poor. She had to give us all away. Oh, sorry. I just really miss my mother. I was sent to live with my cousin, Miss Fuller. When she became ill and passed, I was sent to live with an 8-year-old woman, Miss Thatcher, and I did all the hard work at 8 years old. I can tell you more if you stay for a minute. When I was 18 and finally free, I didn't like the options I had as a woman. I didn't want to be married. I didn't want to be a teacher. And I wanted to travel, and I wanted to help the Patriots. So on May 20th, 1782, I disguised myself and enlisted in the Continental Army as Robert Shirtliff, and they bought it. Later, I was raiding weapons in Torrey County on horseback, and the Tories shot me in 2 places, my neck and my leg. I didn't tell Dr. Binney about the bullet in my leg because I thought he was going to expose me and I'd be kicked out of the army. I dug the bullet out myself, even though it hurt more than anything that had ever happened to me. A while later, a fever outbreak had hit America harder than a cannonball hits water. I also had caught the fever. It was so bad, I sunk into coma, and when I woke to 2 soldiers fighting about my uniform. They thought I was dead. I had informed the nurse I was alive, and by the time that Dr. Binney had come back, I had sunk into coma again. Dr. Binney examined me and discovered my secret. Some time later, General Patterson took me aside and asked me if it was true. I said it was in fear, but he told me I had his respect. I asked him for a fine dress, so he could see what the real Deborah Sampson looks like. I was given a pink silk dress with a pink satin bow. And a while later, I was introduced to Dr. Binney's children. I was dressed as Robert Shirtliff, a brave soldier. In 1783, I was discharged from the army. I think that people like to hear me talk about war. People like to hear me talk about some of my many stories because I was a woman in battle. It was fun meeting and talking with you. Goodbye. I am off to my speech with some fellow patriots.
The redcoats are coming! The redcoats are coming! Wait, you're not the colonists. Where'd they go? Oh well. Hello. I am Paul Revere, and I am a famous patriot. Let me tell you why. I was born in Boston during the cold months of December, 1734. We wanted our own independence from Britain because they were being unfair to the colonists. When I got older, I joined the Sons of Liberty, which was a group who were against King George. I was a messenger and I rode my horse to carry information. I am most famous for the midnight ride I took to warn the colonists that the British Army were coming. I found that out from a man by the name of Joseph Warren, that I was chosen to warn the colonists that the British were going to attack Concord. Since there were no phones, no computers, and no iPads, I had to get on my horse and ride all the way to Lexington to deliver the message that the British, in fact, were coming. Good thing that the Minutemen gathered and were ready to fight. During the ride, I was joined by my friend William Dawes. At one point, a British soldier came running after us and pointed his gun at us. Dawes ran away because he wasn't as brave as me. The soldier looked at me and said, "Give me your horse." So I was basically choosing between my horse or my life. So I chose my life and had to do the rest on foot. Later in the trip, I found Dawes. I called him a scaredy cat the whole way back to Boston. All of the troops I warned were thankful that I was there to warn them. When I got back, my feet hurt so much. It felt like King George was taxing my feet. As soon as possible, I started helping in the war. After 7 years, we won. And because of me, everyone was ready to fight in the war and knew that the British were coming. Without me, the Patriots might have been caught by surprise in Lexington and Concord. The war is beginning. I have to go warn the colonists. Bye, it was nice meeting you.
Newport Mercury. No. America. No. Oh, hi. Sorry. I was just trying to figure out my best code. Just in case you don't know me, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, I'm Phyllis Wheatley, and my story starts when I was kidnapped from my home in Africa, brought to Boston, and bought as a slave by Susanna Wheatley. Rest in peace. Susanna also, not knowing what my birth name was, named me after the boat that brought me to Boston. This was very tragic for me, as you can imagine, but I forgave her because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be as well known as I am today. For she taught me about poetry and to speak English, Latin, and Greek. She taught me so many writing topics, but of all of them, my favorite was poetry, and that's why I started my career. I became well known as a great poet, but there was one time when I wasn't trusted. It all started when a group of well-known men found out about my poems. They wanted to put my poems into a book, but they didn't think that slaves could write, so they decided to put me to the test. My testing took place at the courthouse in Boston, Massachusetts during spring 1772. I was really nervous. The attendees included well-known men such as John Hancock, Andrew Oliver, and Thomas Hutchinson. I don't remember much, but I'm pretty sure they asked me to recite Greek verbs or to recite a poem by John Milton, whom I adore. After the test, I was overwhelmed, but in a good way. The nerve to think I didn't write my famous words. The white men didn't think slaves could write. They sure do think a whole lot of themselves. But after my visit, they wouldn't dare. I proved them wrong, and I did it with pride. Overall, I was important to the revolution because I inspired the patriots and I gave them a voice. My poems talked about the war and how the British were being drama queens. Well, I've got to get back to it, deciding my favorite poem. Thank you.
Stay calm, Nathan. It's going to be okay. Just tell them you're a Dutch schoolmaster. Oh, hello. I am Nathan Hale, a spy for the Continental Army. I was born on June 6, 1755 in Coventry, Connecticut. And for a while, I was a school teacher. I became a soldier when the Revolutionary War started. But when I stole a supply soup from the British, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Dalton heard about what I did, and asked me to be a part of the Knowlton's Rangers, a group that located enemy targets, and I obviously said yes. Later, General Washington needed someone to be a spy, so I volunteered and got the part. Let me tell you the story of my famous capture. Sound good?
Yeah.
First, I thought I was going on a ship to tell General Washington the information that I discovered while spying. But then I realized the ship that I was going to get on was a British ship. I was scared to death. I got captured by the British soldiers. The British soldiers brought me to their headquarters, and General William Howe questioned me. Also, General William Howe found notes and a map in my shoe, which was not so great. At first, I told the British soldiers that I was a Dutch schoolmaster, but then I realized that there was no point lying to the British soldiers. They were going to capture me anyway. What cowards. So I admitted that I was a spy. And for some reason, General William Howe agreed to let me go, but only if I was loyal to the king. But I would never be loyal to that unfair king. So then General William Howe told me that I was going to be hanged. On my last night, I wrote letters to friends and family, such as Enoch, my older brother. I felt really sad, but I knew it was the right thing to do. On Sunday, September 22nd, I died. But before that, I said my famous quote, "I only regret that I have one life to lose for my country, and I died for my country." I was important to the American Revolution because I showed courage and strength. Because of me, spies made a better effort in their job. I was a great help to the American Revolution. The British never found out the information that I discovered. God bless America.
Dear family. Oh, I didn't see you there. Well, since you're here, I might as well tell you my story. I'm Abigail Adams. I was born on October 11, 1744. Since I stayed home, I witnessed the American Revolution firsthand. My story is about the letters of my life. I am known for my bold characters and special letters, and my suggestions for the Continental Congress. Well, I hope you enjoy my story. Get comfortable. It's going to be an interesting one. Rather than just telling you, why don't I read you some of my famous letters? Dear family, I just experienced and saw the Battle of Lexington and Concord. It happened so close to my home, I could hear shots fired. I was nervous and excited. I even got to see the troops and climb to the top of the watch house to see the whole battle. Dear John, it's so hard living there in these times. There are fights happening and British soldiers coming to live with us. Please come home. I need help. 1783. Dear John, please come home. Guess what? I got your letter. I'll come and live with you in England. Could our daughter Nabby come too? I can't wait to go away from the war. Here's the last letter. Dear children, your father is declared the first ambassador of England. It shows how he's helping the war in our new nation. One of my best quotes is, "My pen is more free than my tongue." As you can see through my letters, I was able to write more than I was able to tell in person. Overall, in my lifetime, I wrote 2,200 letters. Many of them with suggestions to make our colony a better place. My letters are valuable today because they tell us all about life during the Revolutionary War. Well, farewell. I'm off to write another special letter. I hope you enjoyed my story.
Hello, I'm Sybil Larrington, and I'm one of the youngest people who helped the Americans win the Revolution. I grew up in Paterson, New York, and I'm the oldest of 8 siblings. Growing up, I helped my mother take care of the younger children. I always loved riding my wonderful horse Star. Let me tell you about the cold and rainy night of April 26, 1777 that changed my life. Let me tell you, here's my amazing story of of how I helped us win the war and save Danbury at only 16 years old. I heard a knock at the door, so I opened it, wondering who it could be. It was a messenger, and he told us that the British were burning Danbury, a local town. The messenger was too tired, wet, and cold to warn my father's soldiers of the British burning Danbury, so I offered to go. My mother thought I was crazy, but I went anyway because I knew I had to, because there was no one else to go. When I got on start, I was scared for our journey. At every house, I banged on the door with my stick and told the people inside the message, and stayed just long enough to hear a response. On my way to Stormville, I saw outlaws in the woods. I was so scared that they would take Star, but we got away without them seeing us. When I got to Stormville, all the people were already gathered on the town green, and they were cheering for me and Star. I was so happy. When I got home, it was already sunrise, and all the soldiers were gathered on our front lawn. A few days later, George Washington came to thank me for my bravery. And that is the story of how I helped save Danbury from being destroyed. If I did not volunteer to go warn the soldiers, the outcome of the war might have been different. They would not have known to fight the British that were burning Danbury. Then the British might have won the war, and we might still have taxes from the British today. In conclusion, thanks to me and some other people, we won the war and saved Danbury. Farewell, I'm off to ride the sky.
Running in a roll, it's wishing and it's flashing over the horizon. What could it be? The pilgrims sailed the seas to find a place to call their own. In their ship made flowers, they hoped to find a better home. They finally knocked on Plymouth Rock, and someone said, "We're there." It may not look like home. rocking and we're rolling, swishing and splashing over the horizon. What can it be? Looks like it's going to be a free country.
Give me liberty or get... Oh, hello. You weren't who I thought you were. I'm Patrick Henry, one of our founding fathers. I was born in Virginia in 1736 and became governor in 1760. I was well known for my bold speeches and eventually became a member of the House of Burgesses. That's where the fun began. Here's my story. King George III was taxing everyone way too much. I had to do something, especially about that darn Stamp Act. Then, during the Second Virginia Convention in 1775, there was a debate about whether we should leave England or not. I thought this was crazy, because King George III did everything bad to us. He taxed us on everything, cut off our trade with the rest of the world, didn't allow us to elect our own Congress, and more crazy acts. If you look it up on that weird thing called Google, all of those bad actions King George III did to us are in the Declaration of Independence. There are 27 things that King George III did to us, bad things. I swear, if they could tax us on the air we breathe, they would. We had to leave England. Then I gave my famous quote on March 23rd, 1775. Give me liberty or give me death. The hush fell over the room. I knew people were impressed. After my word got around, militiamen started wearing shirts with my words on them. They thought it was a great quote and would encourage everyone. I felt so proud. The war had started, but I had resigned after a few years of fighting. I felt that I might be better off the battlefield. After the war, I was elected governor 5 more times, and this time in the independent state of Virginia. Because of me, America has freedom. Long live American independence!
Oh, hello. Sorry, didn't notice you. I was just perfecting my signature. If you didn't already know, I'm John Hancock. I was born in Massachusetts. When I was 7, my father died. So I lived with my uncle for the rest of his life. So when my uncle died, I inherited his riches. I was also elected governor of Massachusetts 11 times. Let me tell you how I signed the Declaration of Independence first. In 1775, I was unanimously voted the President of the Continental Congress. My fellow patriots Ben Franklin, John Adams, and my friend Sam Adams rejoiced with me. I was so excited, and I deserved it. On July 2nd, 1776, in Philadelphia, we finally agreed to declare independence against Britain because they gave us unfair taxes. And believe me, we did not like those taxes at all. I was so excited. So let's talk about the actual signing. I made a very big deal. I flipped my lace cuffs. It being my signature was very large and dramatic, and may I say important, all because I signed first. You're welcome. After all, I was making history. The Patriots won the war, so I'm honored forever as the first to sign. But if the colonies lost, this face would be hanging for treason. Unlike everyone else, I was so large so King George III wouldn't need his spectacles. Everyone thinks George Washington was at the top of King George III's dangerous American list. But I was, with a price of 200 pounds on my head, and I'm proud of it. In conclusion, I'm not your average patriot. America wouldn't have changed without me, though. But they needed me to lead the Continental Congress to freedom, though, I did sign the Declaration of Independence first, but anyone else could have had it and wouldn't have changed history as we know it. Farewell, I'm off to practice my me.
Morning Patriots. I am Mercy Otis Warren. I wrote a lot of patriotic poems and plays during the American Revolution. Let me tell you a little bit about myself before we begin. Since my father was a lawyer and a member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives, we had very interesting dinner conversations growing up. We talked about the new laws they were making in Boston, and I grew up thinking about politics. Even luckier, my father believed girls should be educated, so I studied with a local minister and learned about Rome and ancient Greece. I married a man named James, and we had 5 sons, and together we lived in Plymouth. My husband and I often hosted meetings with other patriots in hopes of uniting the colonies against the British rule. Let me tell you about my important roles during these meetings. Patriots met at the Warren Parlor to plan Continental Congress to unite the colonies against the British aggression. We named my house 1 Liberty Square. I did not just want to sip a cup of tea, I wanted to discuss with the patriots. In my free time, that was when my kids were sleeping, I wrote lots of poems. I did not sign my poems because most people would not respect a woman's writing. But some knew of my secret, like John and Abigail Adams, and my husband James. The sort of poems I wrote were the squabble of the sea nymphs about the Boston Tea Party when a group of colonists got onto the English boat and dumped all the tea off. John Adams called it real genius. They made the people inspired. After that, the battles between Lexington and Concord began, so James joined George Washington's army as the paymaster general. I worked as James's secretary at the army headquarters. I was also sad because James was in battle and I was at home with the children packing your trunks so if the British attacked we would be prepared. Then I still wrote lots of poems, but I wanted to do much more. I complained to Abigail Adams that men went to school and women did not. After I came up with the most brilliant idea of all, to write a poem on the history of the American Revolution. It ended up being 1,000 pages. Well, I better get going. I have a long poem to write, and besides, I told you more than enough. Goodbye.
Whatever you do, don't eat the peas. Don't eat the peas. Oh, hello. I am Phoebe Francis. I am 13 years old and I live in New York with my father, Samuel Francis. My family are free African Americans and my father owns Queen's Head Tavern. It is the place George Washington eats when he is in New York. Since the war was happening, they knew it was a safe place to talk. They held meetings and discussed their secret plans too. Legend has it. One day, my father and I were sitting on a bench in Queen's Head Tavern. He told me I had a serious job to do. He told me I had to be George Washington's housekeeper. After that, he said I had to listen, watch, and spout every bit of information to figure out who was going to kill George Washington. I was petrified. I did not know if I was going to be able to do it. When I arrived at the house, the cook, Mary, showed me around and all the jobs I had to do. Let me just tell you, I had a lot. I had to buy the food, keep the silver clean, serve the meals, and dust the furniture. When she was done, I felt that there were too many chores, and I already missed Queen's Head Tavern. I was the youngest servant in the house, except for a little boy named Pompey. Also, the other men were older except for one. His name was Mr. Hickey. He was George Washington's bodyguard, and he gave me ribbon and food, but there was something about him I didn't like. A few days later, I served dinner, and Mr. Hickey brought the June peas. When he brought the peas, something didn't look right. They had little specks on them, and it was really early for the peas to be out. Soon, I realized that the killer was Mr. Thomas Hickey. I cried to General Washington and told him the peas were poisoned. Everyone gasped. George Washington was so mad he threw it out the window, and the chickens ate it. The peas were poisoned, so the chickens were on the ground dead. That is when I was certain it was Mr. Hickey. If I was not there, the war would have not been the same if George Washington had been poisoned. Well, I did my job, and I feel so relieved for being a 13-year-old girl and saving General Washington. Good day, everyone.
Whoa!
Oh, hello. I wasn't expecting you to be here. Well, now that you are here, get comfortable because I I have a story to tell you. I am Molly Pitcher. My real name is Mary Ludwig Hayes, but you probably know me as Molly Pitcher. I am a young American patriot, and I traveled with the soldiers. But there is one specific time I helped them in war when women were not allowed to fight. The story starts when I was traveling with the soldiers to a battle in Monmouth, New Jersey. My husband, William Hayes, was going to fight at the cannon, and when we saw the British soldiers, all the women had to stay back because women were not allowed to fight in war. But I knew I had to help some way. It felt like 96 degrees on the battlefield, and guess what? It was. I had to get water for so many soldiers because I knew it would help them tremendously. These soldiers didn't know my name, so that's how I got the name Molly Pitcher. Molly is another way of saying miss or ma'am. For the pitcher, they were asking me to bring the pitcher. So together, they were saying, Miss, give me the pitcher. But then, William Hayes fell at the cannon. I ran across the battlefield as fast as I could, but it was very dangerous to run during the battle. And if you're a girl, you know that running in a dress is hard. Come on, you know it's hard. Admit it. I also heard a bunch of soldiers yelling, "Get Soldier Hayes off the battlefield. There are no more men to fire the cannon." And that's when we'll have to bring it back. And that's when I said, who says men have to fire a cannon? So I started loading the cannon with gunpowder and cannonballs. I shot the cannonballs out of the cannon, and everyone was so shocked. Someone yelled, "Incoming," and I saw a cannonball coming right towards me. On the outside, I was all calm, but on the inside, I was like, "Help me, help me, help me." When a cannonball landed, it ripped my dress. At least it was easier to run now. But I wasn't going to let that single cannonball stop me. And after the war was over, I received gold coins and a soldier hat for helping our soldiers. Yippee! Don't worry, William Hayes is okay now, but the heat almost got to him. Without me, we wouldn't have won the battle. I know I will never forget that day. I was so proud. I am very happy that I took over the cannon because all the other women actually cared about me, so I felt like I made all the girls proud. I think my actions in battle prove that women should have had the same rights as men. But what can I say? We won. Well, I better get going because William Hayes is waiting for me. Farewell.
Find the tea, don't just sit there. Oh, sorry. I thought you were my friends from the Sons of Liberty. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Samuel Adams, but some people call me Sam Adams. I was the leader of the Sons of Liberty, a group of people who led the movements against the greedy king. My friends and I from the Sons of Liberty are known for rebelling against the annoying Tea Act from King George III in Parliament. But before we get there, you probably want to know more about me. I was born in Boston, Massachusetts on September 27, 1722. I had 6 children, but sadly only 2 of them survived. Let me tell you a story about how we got back at the British for their endless taxes. Even though the other colonists wanted just to end the taxes, I wanted to put a stop to the king's rule once and for all. If we were free, taxes would just go away. When I had the idea of the Boston Tea Party, I sent a messenger to the governor to send the ships with tea back to England. We gave him one last chance to work with us, but when he refused, we went into action. There was another annoying tax. Great, the Townshend Act. At this point, we all wanted freedom to get rid of these stupid taxes. On December 16, 1773, we dumped 342 chests of tea overboard into the Boston Harbor. Ha ha, take that, King George III. The Sons of Liberty and I all dressed up as Native Americans to throw the tea overboard, so no one would recognize us. I was so happy when I was dumping the tea into the Boston Harbor because I felt free for once. No tea on the British ships now. Yay, the Sons of Liberty did it. When word got to Parliament that we threw the tea overboard, They were enraged. They punished us for throwing 342 chests of tea overboard into the Boston Harbor. Because the tea was worth a lot of money. I, John Hancock, and Paul Revere, and all the other colonists were punished by the closing of the Boston Harbor. But we were all still happy because we did something right for our country. As a result, we all rejoiced even though we were punished. Long live America's independence!
My wax just blinked. Oh, I'm sorry. I mistaked you for one of my wax figures. Huh? You want me to do a speech on how I helped in the revolution? Did you just say no? Look, everybody makes mistakes, and I'm sorry I tried to scold your eyes. Anyway. Hi, I'm Patience Wright. You probably don't know who I am. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was a well-known sculptor. Yeah, I have skills. I was raised as a Quaker and I was born in Oyster Bay, New York, 1725. Now let me get to the story. A long time ago in 1773, I was invited to sculpt the King and Queen at Buckingham Palace. Even though I didn't agree with the rules, I needed the money. I pretended to become friends with them and even called the king by his first name. I don't care that I was faking it though, because they were cool.
Excuse me?
Oops. During the day, I would go chat with British soldiers. I always went to them secretly and told them fake information about the war and how the colonies were going to attack and all that good stuff. It was fake though. The soldiers bought it and told me real information about the war. I wanted to tell my sister Rachel, who I was very close with and had opened up a wax store with back in Philadelphia. I knew I couldn't just send a small sheet of paper saying the information because I would get caught, since anything traveling to the colonies from Britain would be checked. I couldn't send them messages in a package, so I would put them in butts of wax heads. The heads were people like George Washington or Ben Franklin. My sister and I were a successful team. I got the messages and she told them to the Congress. Pretty shrewd of me, right? After figuring out some more information, the British had suspected I was a spy. I don't blame them though. I would think the same thing. Since they were suspicious, I didn't always get correct information. After the war, George Washington wrote me a letter on how proud he was and how cunning my plan was. He even wanted me to make a bust of him. I know, I was spectacular. Anyway, I'm sorry to leave so soon, but I need to get back to work on my wax figures.
Well, I guess I could put down this needle and thread for just one moment. I am Betsy Ross, a well-known patriot from Philadelphia. I owned my own upholstery shop that my husband John and I started. But remember, I wouldn't want anyone to steal my design. Now, let me tell you the story of when George Washington came to my house and asked me to create the American flag. So, here's how it went. George Washington came to my house with Colonel George Ross, which I was terrified about. They showed me their basic design of what they would like the flag to have on it. They said it should have 13 red and white stripes and a field of blue with 13 six-pointed stars. But I made some arrangements. I suggested the stars should actually be 5-pointed, and it should be less square and more rectangle, so it will blow better in the wind. So I made a prototype of the flag. Then Colonel George Ross came back and took my flag to the flag committee, so the committee could judge based off the other flags. I started to get really nervous. But then I won. Colonel George Ross ordered me to make a lot more for all the battleships. I got really scared. Money was already scarce, and now I have to buy hundreds of fabrics. Where would I get the money? Eventually, I decided I would use all the money I could and do my best. Then Colonel George Ross came back and gave me money to spend. I soon regretted my decision. I worked so hard to sew those flags day and night, but in the end, I'm still new today, so I think it was actually worth it. Because of me, your battleships had a red, white, and blue flag flowing for independence. And now, we still use the flag today. I was so scared when General George Washington showed up to my upholstery shop, but I overcame my fear and made our flag. So, you're welcome. Farewell. I am off to open my shop.
Oh, hello. Are you loyalists? You better not be Americans!
Long live American independence!
I was just working on my list of people to punish. Would you like to hear? Okay, here it is. Number 1 is the Americans. Number 2, William Pitt. Number 3, my Prime Minister, Lord North. Number 4, General Cornwallis. And number 5, Parliament. These people are on my punishment list because they do not realize I wish nothing but the good and they disagree with me. Therefore, they are traitors and scoundrels. Well, anyway, I am King George III, but you probably already know that. I am also known as the what? The only most fabulous king of Britain and a few other countries. How unlucky was it me to have to be the king of the Americans during the American Revolution? Why couldn't one of the other 100 kings of Britain be king during that dreadful era? But let's not talk about that now. People remember me as the king who lost America, but I like to say America lost me. Let me tell you the story of how America lost Britain. It all started on October 19th, 1781, when that coward, General Cornwallis, surrendered to the Americans at Yorktown. This made my Prime Minister, Lord North, give up on me. What a weakling, right? Then I came up with an absolutely brilliant plan to harass the colonists using land and sea. But that wretched Parliament turned down my ideas too expensive and too dangerous. In fact, at that exact meeting, William Pitt declared the war wicked, barbarous, and cruel. The nerve to say that to my face! I was deeply angered. Then, the cherry on top of it all, September 1783, Parliament agreed to the signing of the treaty declaring America a free country. Can you believe that? Who would do such a thing? I never liked Parliament again after that. I wonder if I can buy a new Parliament on this new thing called Amazon. Of course I didn't attend the treaty signing. If I had, my reputation would have been ruined, and I would have become known as a cowardly king. To think this bloody war was all because of taxes. Also, just to tell you, England's people had more taxes than the colonists. Also, you have even more taxes now. Now I don't see any of you guys complaining. Well, that's my story. I know you think I'm cruel because of the war, but I want you to keep in mind that by making America fight, it brought the Americans closer together and made them stronger and more feared. I certainly hope you can understand now my list of people to punish is so long. Now, if you'll please throw me roses. Everyone in England throws me roses after speech.
Boo!
What? No roses? You're all going on my punishment list. Anyway, good day.
1787, I'm told our founding fathers did agree to write a list of principles for keeping people free. USA was just starting out a whole brand new country, and so our people spelled it out, the things that we should keep. run our country ever since then. The first part of the Constitution is called the Preamble and tells us what those founding fathers set out to do.